My questions are directed to Sunwing. I'm wondering, what is a reasonable amount of time to ask your clients to remain on standby in hotel lobbies or airports while your company figures out how to get them to their destination? I'm curious to know if you have a policy on this, and if so, what is it?
Thank you for the question. Clearly, we don't want any passenger ever waiting in a hotel or ever delayed. Unfortunately, and as the situation evolved and with the various challenges of weather, infrastructure, and the ability to respond to those, the delays were knocked on and ran for quite a while. The answer is we never want one of our passengers delayed. Unfortunately, once the delays started to happen, as you've heard from my colleagues, with airplanes out of rotation everywhere, limited subservice availability, the holiday season, recovery became difficult. But we did everything possible to both repatriate passengers as quickly as possible, but also make sure they were taken care of in destination, again, regardless for the reason for delay.
So besides reimbursing expenses, what kind of compensation do you think is appropriate for those who had holiday plans ruined due to Sunwing's poor service over the holidays? Do you think this should be determined so that the compensation is consistent and fair for all those who were affected?
I think that compensation is well defined in Canada's APPR regulations. Sunwing fully intends to comply with all of our obligations under that regulation. And as I've stated previously, we've done all possible to take care of passengers in destination, making sure the hotel accommodation, food, beverage, and additional local support was provided.
Thank you for that. And if I may go back to my initial question, I'm not sure that you touched upon whether or not Sunwing has a policy. I mean, obviously, you know, everybody knows that it's never the intention that passengers receive services less than par. But do you have a policy in that regard?
I'm not sure I understand the question. A policy to recover passengers?
Well, what is your policy? You know, how long is it okay for passengers to be stranded in hotel lobbies and airports? What is a time frame that is, you know?
Zero is acceptable because clearly I need to get the airplanes continuing their rotation so that other passengers can continue on their trip. So we don't plan extensive delays. It's not feasible, and it logistically doesn't make any sense.
And finally, I truly appreciate that you apologize to Canadians who received poor service from your company. But the sincerity of that apology is best judged by the actions you take afterwards. I'm sure you will agree. What actions are you taking to ensure this does not happen again? And please be as specific as possible. That is what the Canadians are expecting from us today. So I think, you know, being as detailed in your response as possible is the way to go.
We will continue to meet all of our APPR regulations, regulatory requirements as stated previously. We have actively looked to reduce our schedule for the remaining season to ensure we have more slack in the schedule. We've undertaken enhancements and review of our communication systems to ensure that we have a more open line of communication and that there is less opportunity for failure. And we will continue to focus on our business as we have done for 20 years of making vacation dreams come true for people.
Lessons learned, would you say, Mr. Corrado? What are you and your team doing as we speak right now? You know, since this happened, the next second, what happened? And what are you doing to ensure this doesn't happen again?
I think as I've mentioned, we're pulling down our schedule in order to give ourselves more slack in the schedule, so that if we have additional weather events or infrastructure events, we have more ability to respond, as well as we've already made actual changes to our communication tools.
WestJet and Air Canada to chime in on some of the questions that I asked of Mr. Corrado. Do you have policies as to how much is acceptable, a length of time that passengers can be stranded in hotel lobbies or airports? Is this something that you look at when you're putting your policies in place for superior client service?
There's no
Thank you.
acceptable time for our guests to be stranded anywhere. There's no acceptable time for a Canadian customer to be sleeping on a sidewalk or a hotel airport floor or anywhere else. It's as unacceptable to us as it is to any member of parliament or any customer of ours.
And from Air Canada, I would say it's exactly the same, and we don't spare any expense, whether we have to send rescue aircraft in, put customers on other airlines. We will do whatever it takes within our, with whatever we can do. So we don't have the exact timeline, but nothing is acceptable and no expense will be spared.
Thank you very much, Ms. Katrakis.